This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good afternoon. We're a small group today, which is in some ways kind of great. So, who would like to start? You'll go. Break the ice.
The first question is,
Introduce yourself.
my name is Patty Vensky and I live in Black Mountain Village
Okay.
on Arkansas Valley. Question is, in the past, I've participated in the, what do you call it? The yard sales that we used to have down here in the parking lot.
Right.
And with COVID, we've gone up to individual neighborhoods where
Correct.
people do it. Is there any thought going back to the parking lot with all of the break-ins that are happening up here to prevent just people leading us to believe that they're really interested in what somebody has to sell versus just checking out homes that appear to be empty?
Well, yeah, let's address that in several ways. Number one, we're open to, because first time we did it in the villages, we had like 400 people.
Mhm.
And then it's dwindled to like 140, around that. So, I mean, we're very open in terms of we can come back and maybe have one of each.
Right. Yeah, I
And-
participated when it was at the parking lot. And then I did participate one time in the neighborhood and I didn't have anybody come down Arkansas Valley, but I was more
Yeah.
successful in the parking lot.
We have problems on both hands.
Okay.
One, we increasingly got a lot of people who were non-residents getting tables, who were selling holy sheets and,
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
Yeah, whatever.
pirated CDs and
Okay.
various things like that. And people were awful to the patrol members who were trying to direct traffic. And in fact, during one, I can remember when I was on the patrol, some guy with a big truck, I said, "You can't park here, the cones." And he said, "To hell with it," and drove right over the cones.
Wow.
And so part of it is for very rude
Yeah.
people and trying to deal with the traffic, we decided to try something else.
Okay.
So I think the board's very open. I don't think we've made any decision at this point to either have one or the other.
I was just curious.
I think, increasingly, if people want to get rid of stuff, they donate it,
Yeah.
dispose of it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
One of the things in terms of, we have found no association though between having garage sales in the neighborhood with the burglaries.
Okay.
In fact, if you look at last year, we had a total of 40 burglaries
Mm-hmm.
for the whole year.
Right.
That's hardly a crime wave because that's less than 4 a month,
Yeah.
which out of 7,144 homes is minuscule.
Right.
Now, it's minuscule unless if you're the one who was burglarized.
Yeah.
And then it's a veritable crime wave.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I did.
So, put that in perspective that even, and there was a gang lately and there were 5 hit kind of in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an anomaly that kind of happens now and then, but, it has really nothing to do. We're an open community. This idea that bad people flock in during garage sales, why wait? You can come anytime, right now, today. They can be driving around your neighborhood casing it because this is open all the time. And so why would they just wait for a garage sale? You can blend in with all of the landscapers and various people, painters and carpenters and all kinds of maintenance people coming into the neighborhoods throughout the week. So you just blend in.
Yeah. Well, my next question that I have is, I attended the last board meeting where, you went over the fourth quarter financials and the year financials. And I don't remember who it was who mentioned it, but, I've been attending the meetings where when the discussion of the fitness center rates was going up, and then there was a lot of conversation with why the rates, our quarterly dues went up. And somebody had mentioned, and again, forget who it was, that said, well, we've got to take a look this year because all utilities are going up, not just for us as homeowners, but for you as having all of the facilities that you have. So my question is, are we doing any strategic planning right now by keeping statistics? Like I live close to Liberty Center, and it's open 7 days a week to whatever hour to hour. But are we keeping stats that on a Sunday afternoon, how many people are going into Liberty Center, from 3 o'clock on in the afternoon till the time it closes? So, and same with Independence Hall. So when we get to that point that some serious cuts, reduction in services have to be looked at, you have that type of information that when you start doing the budget review, like in May when Teresa said, you're already in that strategic planning. So it's not just dropped and said, well, we're doing this.
Let me, I'm Dave Meredith, just so everybody knows. Let me just give you an example of the detailed analysis that went into the fitness fees, the finance part of management, the finance committee, and the board of directors has spent hours going over all the details. We do have and track everything. We know what happened in January already. Some of the classes increased, some of the classes did not. We know what the fees were, but we made a decision back in December that we would take the first quarter, so January, February, and March, and analyze all the data for the first quarter, and then make a decision. Did we make the right decision? Can we improve it? What should we do? But we have all that data, and it is being used. The finance committee took all the data and did an extensive analysis. One of the instructors also did a complete analysis, and her input was used to come to the decision. And so, but we do have the data, and on the usage, we have when you scan your card, it goes into the computer, and so we know when the people are there, and that determines the hours. And some people would like it to be later. Let's face it, when the restaurant opens, things may have to change.
Right.
We've already talked about this. We don't know what the change is going to be yet, but we know that we don't know when the hours or when the restaurant's going to close yet. But we do know that there will have to be some changes. And so we're working on it.
Right.
We're considering all of those things.
Well, and I guess that was my point that, you know, if up at Liberty Center on a Sunday afternoon from 3 o'clock on, there's nobody there in attendance, then why are we keeping the lights on? Why are we keeping it heated at a certain time? Why are we paying for somebody to sit there and nobody walks in on Sunday afternoons? Then I would rather see it closed and maybe extend the hours somewhere else during the week if that's what people want. So that's why I was just questioning if we're looking at the usage right now in predicting what is going to happen next year.
That's a good point, and, but we are looking at
Okay.
usage, and it changes. COVID just totally destroyed data going back.
Yep.
So now we're getting new data, and we are looking at it.
Good.
But it's a damn good question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to also caution you,
Okay.
my name's Greg Swinson, but also at the Liberty Center, sometimes it's deceiving because outside Sunday is a big day for pickleballers at the Liberty Center. And we don't have outside restrooms. We have to use inside if something were to happen. I believe, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, where's the defibrillator at? Is it outside or inside? Inside? Yeah, so we have some issues with defibrillator, with restrooms, whatever, and supporting the pickleball club. So even though there may not be anybody inside the building on a Sunday afternoon, there's a lot more that goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Please, the rest of you ask the great questions like she did. That's good.
Well, since we're talking about finances, I'm sorry, Craig Smith. I live in Desert Sky North, just a few blocks from here. My question is, each year, and I'm not a budget expert, but each year I go through the budget that the association sends out, and I kind of peruse it and look for anything, typically pickleball stuff, if, you know, or things that interest me, but I'm not an expert on anything like that. Does the association do, in my past life in a big organization, we did 5, 10, and 20-year capital improvement program planning. We kind of know life cycles, you know, on equipment, big air conditioning units. We know when they typically go out. Does the staff provide input on when things are going to go, and we need to plan for replacing the air conditioning in Sun City Anthem Center in 2030? Do we do things like that to help us with our budgeting instead of every time I see something come up, we're got to go to the reserves and take it out of the reserves because we didn't plan 5 years from now or 10 years from now? And if I'm way off base and out of touch, then tell me.
We have made a major decision here very recently in our new board policy manual that we are developing. It's been a total rewrite for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
We put a section in there on capital improvement planning, which has not been in there in the past. And it's tied to the AEF. If you know what the asset enhancement funds are, they're for items that are not in the reserve study, new capital projects. But one of the things we put in there is that the board this year, for the first time, in conjunction with doing the new reserve study, we are going to do a capital plan. And we put in there that it will be a fluid process. We will attempt to put together a 5-year plan, and every year we will attempt to take items on and off that plan as we see fit, as input from management comes in. But we've never had that in the past, to my knowledge. We haven't had something, a document we could look at and say, this is our current thinking on what the capital improvement projects might be that are not in the reserve study. And I think it's a giant step forward for Sun City Anthem to have that. And the first time we do it, I think it'll be rough. It'll be difficult because we haven't done it in the past. But I think as we repeat it and do it every year, we'll get better at it.
On one hand, you can consider the reserve study is a forward-looking plan for when things need to be repaired, because everything that is in the reserve study is given a life, and we look at when we would expect to have to replace it and what those costs might be, and then we set aside the money into the reserve fund. So when we say, well, we go to the reserve fund, that's to replace an air conditioner or something that we need, or even for the refurbishment of the restaurant. That's all been factored in, per se. The light fixtures, all of the equipment, the tables, the chairs for a certain life, and we've been saving money for their replacement. So it's just not like an unanticipated, whoops, we take, 500,000 or whatever the amount is out of it without any plan. It has been planned for to be saved. But as Greg said, one of the things I think we've looked at is the need to do more forward thinking, forward planning. And that's why I think we're turning a corner with this board, and pretty excited that with now the AEF to really begin to look at new capital projects and to begin to say, what is it that we are going to need here in terms of new things as time goes on, rather than just refurbishing what we have.
Each of the major components, like the major air conditioners, and we have like 40 or 50 of them. Each of those is listed individually in the reserve study. The reserve study is not just money, it's actual things. The lights that you see up here and the lights all over in the parking lot, they are in the reserve study as an item. And so each air conditioner, if you have a $20,000 air conditioner and it's supposed to last 20 years, theoretically, you would put $2,000 a year into the reserve study. Now, that is not money that is just for that air conditioner. Because an air conditioner under the maintenance programs we have, that air conditioner may last 25 years. One of them may only last 10, but the money is set aside for all of the things. And so in our reserves, we have close to $15 million for all the things that we know. We're now a 23, 25-year-old community. Some of our things were started in 1998. And so we have accumulated money to replace all those things that we know. It's a good question. I'd like to ask people to, if you have any suggestions on new amenities or new things that we should consider, please use this opportunity to tell us, because we're going to take notes on anything you want.
Okay, before we go on, we have a.
This is on the same subject that you're talking about right now.
Okay.
I'm Mike Quinn. I'm a resident here, and I'm also on the finance committee, and I'm one of the guys that deals with our reserves on a regular basis. And this is sort of a plug for something coming up, because most of us who live here do not understand the reserves at all. And so the Lifelong Learning Club asked us to put on a presentation on the 7th of March. It'll be right here in the Delaware room to explain to whoever has an interest and has the time available to come in and learn about what the reserves are, how they work, et cetera, et cetera. Again, just to sort of confirm what the board members have just said, the reserves are a 30-year capital plan, and the funds that are in there are specifically dedicated to the assets of the community. So when you see that something's coming out of the reserves, it is normally something that has been part of this plan. And the thing to keep in mind, we're talking about having a new 5-year capital plan coming out of the AEF funds. But once we buy something new, now it's going to go right into the reserves. So they merge. And it's a fairly complex and highly regulated by the state of Nevada process. And so if you're bored and you want to get an education on it, come out and join the Lifelong Learning Club on 7 March.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We have a question online from Pat, and can you explain where we are with the transition of groups to committees and the impact of that change? We hope to be approving the new, what are we calling it? CCPM. Okay. That's the, what does that stand for, Doris? Can you talk into the mic?
Committees and Clubs Policy Manual.
Okay, the Committees and Clubs Policy Manual, we hopefully will be approving at our February board meeting. Why? And then CLC, in terms of working with clubs, will begin a period of time to work with clubs to recharter themselves. So what's the impact of this change? The impact of the change really is pretty negligible, other than it is the organization and putting everything under the board and being chartered by the board. When we began looking legally at our structure, for instance, our CC&Rs, our governing documents, make no provision for service groups. They don't say anything about creating service groups. They talk about having clubs and committees. So part of this is going back and achieving consistency with our governing documents and making sure that everything is legal in that sense. And why is that important? It's important in terms of insurance coverage. That's not going to be an out for if something happens in a committee and there is some lawsuit or something, they're not going to say, well, you never really approved, these were never really part of the association, so we're not going to cover it. This makes everything part of the association. And so, without question. So that's one of the reasons why it was important. I think beyond that, it's not intended to change the function of these groups or committees. Really, they will go on as before. The clubs will go on as before. I think hopefully the new CCPM, Club and Committee Policy Manual, will be clearer and will provide better guidance to all of the different clubs and committees that we have. So that's really the principal purpose of it. And I hope that answers the question.
Just so everybody knows, this revision was not done just by the board. This is number 48 of the revisions. All of the clubs were given opportunities to have input. All of the committees were given opportunities to have input, and they did. And it has gone back and forth between the lawyers. The Nevada statutes changed over the 20 years. A lot of things have changed. And so it has taken an inordinate amount of time from the board of directors and the lifestyle committee to revise all of this. And we're in the final lap right now.
Right. Yeah, this has been a process that really has spanned over 2 years. It started under the previous board to this board. And so it's been a long ongoing project. All right. Well, I guess we have a follow-up. Please clarify the big change with SCA TV. The decision to disband SCA TV was not done lightly. We certainly have great respect for the work that SCA TV has done over the years. But I think that in talking about looking ahead to the future, we saw that there was less of a need for a TV production studio, but rather to make it part of what we would see as a new service committee, and that would be a communication service committee that would have subgroups, a video streaming subgroup, a print subgroup, and perhaps some other components. What we're in the process of carrying out is the establishment of a brand new website. I always refer people, go look at Sun City Lincoln Hills website, Sun City Roseville website. Google them, look at their websites. They're wonderful. And they have a lot of streaming video, a lot of short videos that kind of reflect the community, but also provides a vehicle to explain to people what is going on. We've started some of this, Doug has started some of this in the e-blasts with the East Lawn Project. Today in the e-blast, there's another video on a restaurant update, and we're wanting to better communicate what the board is doing, what management is doing around the place in doing that in a pictorial kind of way. So I think that it was a decision that over time needs have changed. So we decided to go a different direction and invited them to be part of that group, as well as they could look at becoming a club too. Yeah.
Over the years, I remember hearing some comments about our common walls. Some of them are needing some attention and some study about how to address that. And also I know a concern was some developer or landscaper, somebody thought it was a great idea to plant these great big palms right abutting these common walls. I was wondering where you at on all that?
Since Sean is right here, rather than for one of the board members to try to answer it, let's bring in the expert, head of facilities. And certainly for as long as I've been on the board, we've been talking about the walls, and it's not something we have wanted to run into pell-mell, because
John,
probably we're looking at something like 58 miles, 54 miles of walls, common walls. And if we were to replace them all, we'd probably be looking at $40 million or more. So tell us what we've done with the walls.
I was looking at, mainly interested in your short-term and long-term plans for addressing this issue.
Okay, so we're doing a couple things. We've had an engineering firm come out a few years ago, look at doing some repair methods. Recently, in fact, I think, Dave, you actually had Larry go look at a couple walls on the golf course that are showing some staining from some either overwatering or from some infinity pools. Those we have addressed already. We're addressing those as we go. Larry, the assistant director of the department, is reaching out with James from our compliance division, and we're reaching out to all of those homeowners that we have obvious water damage, and we're having them check their walls for any kind of damage from water. That's one way. The other way, we do have some common area walls that we're addressing slowly but surely. We want to make sure that whatever repair method we do is for the short term and the long term. So we're in two different phases. One's more of the obvious, when you're on the golf course, did you see a lot of those water stains? It's like, oh my God, I had no idea it was that bad. The people that live there have no idea because it's on the back of the wall. And if they don't play golf or they don't hear about it, they don't know it's leaking. So we're addressing that in one way by reaching out via a letter from compliance saying that we noticed a wall that's leaking behind your residence. We need to address it. One of our staff will go actually meet with them, discuss it with them. They'll either have their irrigation checked or their pool checked by a pool company, and that's usually resolved right away. The other ones are the ones that you see on the common area walls on the very bottom with some deterioration going on. We're still forming a plan to have that repaired. So 2 different phases. We're doing 2 different things, but we are working on the plan.
Are you addressing the issue where these huge palm trees are butting up against the wall and the potential of
Yeah, so
some
as we all
damage
know,
there?
there's common area walls and there's Anthem Council involved, which we do relay problems from them to their landscape company that there's issue from the walls. Any kind of walls that are damaged from a tree, we have to investigate whose parcel it is, who's responsible for it. And then we usually send a letter out, we'll go out and investigate. But yeah, we're doing that too. So it's a lot of it's done behind the scenes. Some of you people don't even notice what's going on, but yes, we are working on it.
Yes.
Hi, Tim Miller, Black Desert Sky Village. Steve, could you give us an update on 3 things? Number 1, the theater renovations, updated schedule on opening the restaurant, and the cell phone tower that'll go in at Liberty.
Okay. Cell phone tower is in the process of being permitted, and they're getting various approvals by the city, and I think it's almost soon to have their plans approved by the city council. They are now working, and we're going out and look next week where Nevada Energy has been working with the company putting up the tower to look at how to run electricity. They need a big box to power the tower. And so they're working out that plan of where that will run. And I think it's going to require they're building a retaining wall and some various things. So all of these planning activities are going on, and it's certainly in a very active phase. All of the things you have to do prior to actually starting construction. And hopefully, you know, that would be something in the next 2-3 months you would see actually begin to build the tower, that the planning work, the infrastructure issues would have been solved by then. The tower will have room for 3 carriers. AT&T will be one, and it's up to other carriers if they want to be part of it. So if you have another service other than AT&T, make your carrier know that a tower is going up there. So, and that's their decision to make. Theater. The theater, when is that starting, Sean? In Monday, the 6th of March. And it will probably take about 6 weeks for them to finish completing everything. Because that will be a major upgrade. But March 6th is when they actually begin. And the third question, restaurant. Things seem to be very much the timelines I've seen would be projecting something around sometime in July. So keep watching. We'll keep updating you as the timeline comes together, but that's kind of the latest in terms of what we've seen in that score.
One of the things that has happened about the restaurant is that all of the clubs have been notified that they can still continue using outside caterers until July. And they will be kept up to date so that they can start planning for the fall and the end of the year parties and stuff. So we are keeping everybody who needs to be kept up to date, those who are doing the planning, and that's the club leadership and the committees. So they're working to make sure that everything is done in an organized fashion.
Hi, I'm Tim Adams. I live on Waterton Rivers Drive up here in Black Mountain. And as long as we're asking multiple questions, I'll keep the form, and I've got 3 questions. The first one is, I've got a notice here that at the Henderson City Hall later this week, there's a proposal being put out to increase the height of the tower that you were just speaking of from 45 feet to 75 feet. Now, I'm not sure how much that will change the planning that's gone into this.
My recollection is that it's always been planned for about 70 feet. And that perhaps this is something with the city that, if it exceeds 45 feet, they have to get approval. But I think that was the plan all along, is that it'd be about a 70-foot tower.
Okay. Second question. I've been to a couple of these meetings, and I know a lot of times the board will say, well, we're trying to be in line with what we're told by the lawyers. Do we ever have legal representation at these meetings? Not just to be there to explain some of the questions that might come up? And also, if the board were to make a statement that they'd be held to that legal tells you later that's wrong. Okay, and the third question, I know a lot of people want the restaurant, a lot of people don't want the restaurant, but I think aesthetically, there's some things that we might consider. I know a lot of people have talked about coming up here to the restaurant. Is something being addressed to the green look to the waterfalls we have out in front of this building? The water, I know that for quite some time now, it doesn't look right. Too green.
Our waterfalls are very pristine. The green waterfalls belong to Revere.
Okay, so that's
So
their problem.
We can say we'd like you to clean up your water, but basically I think that's copper sulfate, right? That is in the water.
Yeah, so the waterfalls for the golf course are intentionally dyed. They're dyed greenish, help keep the algae blooms down. They do add copper sulfate to keep some of it down also, but it's dyed on purpose. Where I came from in California, we used to dye ours like a bluish black. For some reason, the golf course likes green. Our waterfall is the one right outside of the corner of the building here, and it's actually turned off. It's been off now for about a month and a half. We're replacing a few motors, and we usually turn it off around the cold time of the year because otherwise it freezes. Back in 2000, I believe 15, it actually froze, burst a pipe, and flooded the pit. So we drain it usually in December-ish sometime, and we'll leave it down till March. But ours is shut off. Revere has the golf course right across from ours, and theirs is like the greenish color. So.
Okay. Good to know. Thanks.
One of the things that will be nice for the restaurant is there will be an outdoor seating area with a fire pit where you'll be able to, in nice weather, eat out on kind of the patio and around the fire pit. So you could be outside.
If we like green.
Yeah, looking at the green water.
You also asked a question about whether our lawyer is present at the thing. The lawyer we have, Clarkson, is one of the top HOA lawyers. There's really 2 here in Nevada, and he's one of the top 2. And he is on the board of the HOA Realtors Association to talk to not only the city of Henderson or Clark County, but also up in Carson City. They do follow the state legislature, especially because they're the ones who Nevada revised statute 116, which is the Bible for all HOAs. Carson City has a lot of do-good people who want to do things, and they are not good for the HOAs in most cases. So yes, the lawyers do. Our lawyer is up there, does attend all of these things, and we do have input to him on what we feel, and he will ask us questions about it. So our lawyer is involved.
You may or may not be aware that we have an official meeting every month called an executive session, and the attorneys attend that session. And that's our opportunities as board members to at least once a month to have it's usually a half day, sometimes it's a full day, to ask questions and deal with all issues we're dealing with and get their opinion on legal options that we have. And since I've been a board member, we've only had one time where we actually had our attorney interact with residents, and that's in our Bill of Turf removal project last year. The very difficult legal issues we're dealing with in that, and we actually had our attorney come and address the residents on that issue. There may be others, but that's one that comes to top of mind.
And it's certainly possible to have him come to, maybe 3 during the year meetings. I mean, if residents would like to have more contact with him directly, we can certainly do that. But as Greg said, we do meet with him every month. He's here in person when we have our board executive session. So, no, it's not. No.
It's not open because we're also dealing with a lot of legal issues with residents and vendors and whatever. And so it is a closed meeting.
And all of the executive meeting is closed because it's all confidential. We may be talking about your house and the paint color you want to use, and it doesn't meet the standards. And what are we going to do about it? And so that's why it is confidential. We get copies of things and we can't talk about them. Love to gossip and stuff, but we can't do it.
But I think it's a good point, and we could certainly invite him to come to some of our regular open sessions too. Oh, that's not a problem. It's if it really becomes meaningful, because people will complain that we are now running up the legal bill by having him unnecessarily come to meetings where he doesn't seem to be that relevant. So I think, if there's a good reason, certainly we can have him, maybe not every meeting, but every now and then, a couple times a year. So residents can know that that's coming up and so good idea. Thank you. Yeah, Tim.
Steve, there's seems like increasing questions about non-residents using our facilities, our assets, the various amenities we have. What's being done about that? Is there something being done to look into that situation, or some thinking about changes to the way we check for resident badges or access to our courts, bocce, tennis, pickleball, et cetera?
Yes, we are. And one of the big changes that we've made is that we have peeled off a group of monitors and transferred them from fitness now being supervised by James Artiega in compliance. And these are compliance monitors. And the compliance monitors will be solely to focus on compliance issues in the gallery, in the buildings. And, if somebody had an issue with one of the courts during the day, they could perhaps get out to the court. So that's principally what we've done to deal with that issue. I think, one of the things I always ask when we're confronted with a problem, how big is the problem? We can legislate rules at the end of the world, but who enforces the rules? And that's always the issue in the HOA. We're not cops. We don't employ cops. And so we really rely on, when it comes to issues with your house and ARC and stuff, we rely on your cooperation to do what is specified, to do things according to the rules and regulations of the HOA. Similarly, in terms of people coming in, when clubs have meetings, all of the clubs have guest policies. We really look to the clubs to enforce that because we don't have a lot of police per se. And now I always say, so are we just overrun with outsiders? I mean, on any given day, I'm sure we always have some outsiders here. But is it so bad that we need to do something else? And frankly, what it will come to is we'll say all of the exits are only exit doors, save for the one door by going into the computer area and sewing room. And all people will have to enter through that door, and you will have a monitor there from 7 until 9 and at night, and everyone will have to produce a card. And if you don't have a card, you won't get in.
I don't know whether you noticed, but there was in the library right here, there were a bunch of ladies playing, and there was a monitor checking to make sure that they each had their card. Not only they had it, but they had it with them. And that may be a change that some of the people may not like, or they have forgotten their card, and they write down the names. And this also goes into the gallery area, that the monitors are checking the people, and those who use the gallery regularly know they have to have their card with them.
So, I think, one, you will see a greater presence, and they will be checking people as they're playing, and that will upset people because you'll be playing cards and somebody will say, I need to see your card. And that will start happening on a regular basis. It used to happen. And then COVID hit, and now it's coming back to that. But that's principally what we're doing. And if that doesn't work, then we'll have to, I don't know, hire armed security guards with, metal detectors and wand people. I don't know, I hope not. And this is where I really say it's just incumbent to everyone to follow the rules and to encourage other people to follow the rules.
Tim, you mentioned the sport courts. I think the board has made the decision we cannot monitor the sport courts. It would be too expensive. So we have put out communications to the clubs to try to get them to do more self-policing. But it's a request. I do think there are some outside people out there on our sport courts, and I think we just have to, if you see it, report it to someone inside the building, and hopefully they'll deal with it. That's the best we can do at this time.
Yes, question in the back.
I'm Don Hill. We're addressing the cell site at Liberty Center. Where exactly is the cell site? Is it on top of the building? Is it in the parking lot? Or it's obviously on Sun City Anthem property, right?
Right, it's on our property, and if you would look at the building, it is on the southwest side, in front of the pool equipment that's there. That's kind of the spot where the tower will go up. And my understanding, it will be camouflaged as a tree.
Okay, there's a lot of buildings or hotels that have cell sites, and they lease that space to the tower company. How much money is Sun City Anthem getting for allowing them to be on our property?
We are getting $1,900 a month. And that will go up each year in a 10-year increment for, I think, up to 30 years.
And does that just go into like the general fund, or is it earmarked for something?
That what?
Is that earmarked for anything, or is it just go into?
Goes into the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
And then, but I would say if another cell carrier wants to co-locate, that will pay us another, I believe, $600 for each carrier. So it could be for two other carriers, it could be another $1,200. So it could be $3,100 a month.
Okay.
By the way, the tower was actually due to the demand from us, from our homeowners, because of the poor service we were getting. In some of the houses, you would go from one room and have coverage and then go to the next room and you couldn't have any coverage at all. So the tower is there based on our needs.
But yeah, still, I mean, we shouldn't have to be, paying for that. If a carrier doesn't have good service, they would be looking for a place to put a tower in.
Right.
And I had a friend that owned a hotel or a motel, and he basically leased his roof for around $1 million. So I'm just looking at how you came upon the dollar amount that you're giving up your property for, and the people that have the tower are not being able to sublease. They would have to come back to you if somebody else wanted to get on the tower, and you would get additional money for that.
There are different ways of handling this. That's if you own the tower. We don't own the tower.
But you own the ground that it's on.
That what?
You own the ground that it's on. And
we own the ground.
You've come up with a contract to give them use of that ground.
Right. And so we're getting $1,900 a month. It's making money for us. We're not paying anything. We're actually earning money.
Okay.
And we asked them to do this for us. It's not like they were coming to us saying, we want to do this. We asked them to come because 22 years of poor cell service. We kind of got tired of waiting for them to get it done. So it was at our request that they came.
I understand it. If you're complaining because your service is bad, and then they have to look for, where can we put in a tower at the minimum cost, and they come back to you and say, if you'll low bid and, give us the ground almost for free, then we'll put the tower in there rather than, any place else, because there's really not, every place else is like
because the cost of building the tower is about $500,000.
I was actually a little alarmed that we were going to ask for rent because I wanted the tower so bad because of where I live and my poor service I have. But the fact they were able to negotiate $1,900 a month, I think is awesome. But I thought we should just give them the dang land and get the tower built. That was my original opinion.
Well, I don't think that you'd be, authorized to give away Sun City Anthem property because you wanted to have a tower built. That it
I
belonged
don't
to
think I'm
Sun City
alone.
Anthem.
I think my whole neighborhood is, the service is awful from where I live. I live 2 blocks from the Liberty Center.
Yeah,
It's one bar. It's terrible.
Just as a point of information, there was a market analysis done of rentals for this exact same application in non-urban areas in the state of Nevada, and the going rate was $1,600 a month. So when management sat down with the company, they negotiated $1,900 a month. So just to put it in context, big difference if you have a hotel in a downtown urban area than if you're out here in the hills.
Other questions from people online? We've got a lot of people online and would like to hear from you. If anyone has a question, please ask. You can just type it in the chat area. No takers. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you for coming. And we look forward to meeting again and enjoy this opportunity to meet with you. So thank you. I don't think we might, I don't know, but we could wait until April.